you know, one of the things we've probably all gotten used to by now are these awkward beginnings at Zoom events. So I'd just kind of like to welcome everyone officially on behalf of Philadelphia Stories, on behalf of the Rosemont College MFA program. Will speak for Chad and Joanne on behalf of the Montgomery County Poet Laureate organization. We just want to officially welcome everyone to our Crimmins Poetry Celebration and the celebration of the crowning of the new Montgomery County Poet Laureate, which is always exciting. So it's a really great day. We've been kind of like vamping, as they say in musical theater, you know, when the orchestra plays the same 4 bars over and over again, waiting for the players to get their act together. So we've been kind of doing that a little bit. We thought that Joe Crimmins, our host, our sponsor of the prize, not Joe Crimmins, I'm sorry, Joe Sullivan, was going to be here. And I'm not sure exactly what's going on, but we want to go ahead and get started. We want to be mindful of everyone's time. This has been a long day, and we have a lot of terrific readings happening. I would just like to say thank you to Joe Sullivan and his family for their tremendous support over the years for the Sandy Crimmins Poetry Prize. For those of you who did not have the pleasure of knowing Sandy when she was alive, she was a tremendous spirit, the kind of person who I think would have embraced lit life with both hands. She was a poet, a teacher, a friend, an activist. We published one of her poems in our very first issue of Philadelphia Stories in 2004. A poem called Spring, which I love. It's a tremendous poem. And she performed at our launch party at Brasserie Perrier. She was an amazing person who left us suddenly and much too soon. So we're grateful to the Sullivan family and their support of this prize in her name, and a way for us to be able to celebrate poets in the community and to celebrate all these other things. It's true. Thank you, Joe and everyone. So at this point, I'm going to stop babbling. I'm going to turn the program back over to Courtney so that she can start introducing the readers and all of our other illustrious guests for today. So thank you all for coming. And
okay. Thank you so much, Carla. This is, I think, we did this math not that long ago. It was like my 12th or 13th year with Philadelphia Stories, and like my 10th-ish as editor, which is so wild to me. This is, I think this is our 9th or 10th Crimmins Award. And we've been doing this at a bunch of times, and it's been really, really terrific. And I'm really excited to have this group here. And we're going to be hearing in a minute from our Crimmins judge this year. And we'll also be hearing from the winning poet, the runners up, and a group of poets who are our editors' choices, which means they're works that were finalists that the readers, the reading group really embraced and wanted to celebrate. So, and we'll also be hearing briefly from 2020's Crimmins winning poet, who we did not get to celebrate last year to the degree that we should have. So that is what we have coming up. And I'm so glad to see so many folks here today. So I'm going to ask our Crimmins judge for this year, Era D. Matthews, to say a few words about the selection process and the poem that she chose. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was great to be here today with everyone and to offer the keynote and the masterclass a little bit earlier. I have to say that the poems from this year's selection show the poet as kind of a historian of our times, how poets are the people's historian. this pandemic age seems to be giving rise to a poetic of pandemic, which is why I referenced it in the keynote. And each poem from this year's selections in its own way provides some sort of voice to the ongoing dialogue and struggle around mortality, isolation, and justice, which are kind of the three main themes from the last year that we keep seeing coming right back up to us through our media outlets, through life itself. The precise topics that littered our feeds and muddled our lives became the raw materials to make art and provided the necessary stillness to truly consider the latent beauty that has always been among us and around us. Readers will see that these poets gaze at whatever brilliant facets their imaginations can conjure, and through whatever deep caverns their real lives demand. The winning contribution this year was Airborne. And one of the things that I thought about Airborne was that it provided, the poem was notable in its stillness, in the way it provided an opportunity for reflection on longing and some of the more mundane aspects of our cloistered lives. I think for so long in the rush of every day, we lose some of the more beautiful aspects of life. And for me, that poem, Airborne, brought to life some of those lovely aspects of just our everyday living. It's notable for both its lyrical voicing, its reflections on peril, mortality, science, life, how we're thinking about whether our points of view matter, and they do. The poem really did deserve its place this year. So I was happy to have judged the contest. And quite frankly, all of the poems were really lovely. And I think that everyone should actually give themselves a round of applause for being able to make in extremely difficult times and under extremely difficult circumstances and still being able to see the beauty in their lives. That's very difficult to do, and y'all did it. And I'm very proud of you as someone who is a poet and a colleague. Thank you for your words, thank you for your voice, and thank you for your writing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. And in the chat, I do have a link to your website, and I do hope that folks check you out, follow you, and get their hands on whatever more you produce in the coming times. I really, really appreciate everything you've done this year for us. Thank you so much. And I think that Dee raises a really terrific point. We should absolutely be celebrating not just the incredible quality and poignancy and power of the work that's submitted and that we're reading, but the very presence of it, I think, is just really, really special and really gratifying. And I really, really appreciate that. So that is wonderful. Thank you so much. And the poet who will be presenting that is, I would like to present Caitlin Kosman.
Thank you very much. So thank you all for being here. I'm so happy to be here today with all of you. And I especially want to thank Era D. Matthews and Courtney Bambrick and everyone at Philadelphia Stories who is involved with the Sandy Crimmins National Poetry Prize and the Lit Life Festival today, which has been really wonderful. And I'm really looking forward to the opportunity to share some work with you and to hear the work of my impressive fellow poets. So I will start by reading the winning poem for the 2021 Sandy Crimmins Prize called Airborne. Airborne. While they are sitting with the empty seats between them, I am cleaning the flies, stuck dead, to the toilet seat in the apartment no one has touched for 4 months. Waiting for me was the musty damp of clothes waiting in the laundry, and 2 rolls of disinfectant wipes on the made bed. Today, this is care. Methods to kill what can't be seen, maybe isn't even there, packaged neatly for my arrival in their absence, and the exaggerated repulsion of strangers, long in advance avoiding meeting. They breathe through cloth and plastic, even sealed among the clouds, as I waste sodden paper towels, lift a window, for a gust of sound to feed the candle flame. When they land, their message is the same as if they'd just pulled up downstairs or at the grocery store on Harrison. I can't tell if they made it there alone. I am trying to read out of the air what I can't hear. The ticking of the next second, the shape of air currents around missing bodies, the things those molecules run into, the pressure drop of a kiss. The sigh before the mold blooms, already like an aftertaste, as I fold the sheets. I want to give a little background for the next poem I'm going to read for you. In 1895, there was an engineer named Wilhelm Röntgen who figured out how to harness a particular segment of the electromagnetic spectrum to make images of the internal structures of organic things. Many people called them Röntgen rays after him, but he called them X-rays after the unknown factor. They were a particular source of fascination among the Victorian British public, who starting in 1896 would line up at exhibitions and lectures to see their beringed hands and bodies as skeletons in real time through a machine called a fluoroscope. Printed X-ray images of one's hands or torso were briefly fashionable as mementos to give to lovers. This only lasted a few short years, however, as X-rays were shown to damage living bodies by 1897. And after that, they were restricted for medical and scientific use. London, 1896. Do you really love me until death? Why stop there? Stand in line with me, love, and let's show ourselves our bones. Faster even than a photograph, this radiograph strips down to bone, death's after image, indecent almost to be so bare in public. Do you think my love will show if I stand between the plates like so? Is that spot of gray upon my breastbone you? That black around my finger prove I'll be yours still when flesh decays beneath the grave? Now you go. Come, I showed you mine. I want to see your ribcage glow, your hands caressing me revealed like slender clacking river stones. Who fears a parlor trick? Who doesn't love a ghost these days, so why not make our own? You've seen so deep inside me, love, it can't come as a surprise, how the X-ray of my pelvis shows new skeletons inside. The evolution of humanity, according to archaeology. Imagine a wide grassy plain. Imagine it dark and full of obstacles and pockets to hide behind. Imagine it full of animals and then full of fears. Big ones and little ones with teeth and slithering bellies. Now imagine a box, thin sides placed at random to close off a patch. Let the grass yellow and die so you forget it was ever there. Now imagine yourself inside the box, flimsy, something howling outside. In the morning, you will set plants in rows, like foot soldiers against the dark. Shells. I remember tension in the dark and a rocking of the world even underground. I remember it as being like our living room, only barer, with an enforced quiet full of anger. They told me the rocking and the muffled cracks and booms came from shells. The summer after, I was cautious at the seaside, holding conchs gingerly to my ear and asking if they were broken, while adults told me the receiver to the sea was working fine. Couldn't I hear? I replaced them apologetically on the sand, where they continued not to explode except in memory. 15 years passed by before I thought of them again, this time far off, unmoored, among the terns and shearwaters. The needle swayed, each blast came back a chime. Eyes closed, I counted slowly backwards, as if for thunder. So this next poem is the first effort toward a book project that I'm calling Dear Caroline, which focuses on 6 women in the history of science named Caroline. This one is about Dame Caroline Hazlitt, a British electrical engineer who lived from 1895 to 1957. She was first secretary of the Women's Engineering Society and the founder of its journal, The Woman Engineer, as well as founding director of the Association of Women Engineers. She is very focused on using electricity in the home to help alleviate the burden of domestic labor on women. This poem contains a line from a letter to Hazlitt in 1925 from her friend and fellow electrical engineer Margaret Partridge about an upcoming electricity conference, and a line from Hazlitt's reply. Partridge and Hazlitt, engineers. Dear Caroline, please tell me, am I a lady or an engineer? What are you? Dear Caroline, Dame Caroline, I see your fingers full of sparks, 100 women carried lightly on your back. You laugh at me, wave a sheaf of pages, neatly printed numbers in my face. And these are just the member dues. Lady of the wires, I've started seeing you reflected slant behind the screened window of the microwave. The night buzz of the old lamp bulb taunts me like a whisper. One thing I'm quite clear about, you write to Margaret, and that is that we are both going as engineers or semi-engineers and not as wives. If I desire to take part in any of the more serious discussions, I shall most certainly do so. I see you both in your neat skirts and button jackets, perfect curls beneath a hat among the ranks of men. But no, Medusa-like, those curls pinned tight are telegraph wires you bend with will to women's hands. Their hissing remonstration, I can't tame you either way. What are you, Caroline? Your half smile pictured in the curve of my 6-temp electric kettle, the gleaming of my stove light. I see you and Margaret sitting close, heads close enough for thought to arc, live, from mind to mind. The last poem that I'm going to share with you today is called Visitation. The sound a gentle keening, like a kettle almost, but going on and slowly building. I pad over to the kitchen, but whatever sound this is, it isn't mine. As if it's thinking to explode, an eerie whine, one note I attribute to my neighbor until it builds and my head turns to the window where I have just pulled down the blinds, outside of which something speeding towards us, like a fire truck siren caught on its first gasp. And still it's louder. I can almost see some strange spaceship hurtling past, straight down the street's long line, but I am rabbit caught against the cushions, not quite afraid to pull the blinds, but thinking this is how the world could end, gone sideways in a scree the way we've all been feeling, silent and closeted alone. And still I'm waiting for the impact, but only the barest Doppler whine lowers from my ears down to my pelvic bowl. The cobra brought up to my throat, now coiling down to rest again. The sound long hurtled past, now slowly letting go. Without a punch, it's just anticipation on its own, no end. And I am slowly letting go, slowly standing on stiff legs, the blind still drawn, and I am worried that was it, and I have missed it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Gigantic round of applause. That was really, really wonderful. Thank you. I am working against my own impulse to gush and go on and on about how much I love those, but we're moving on because we do have a lot of folks to hear from. And next up is Sean Webb. Are you there? You ready?
Yes.
Here, yes, please. Very happy.
Thank you. Thanks, Courtney, and thank you, Era, for judging the contest this year and selecting this. And thanks, Philadelphia Historian. It's wonderful to come to the conference today and connect with folks and hear so much wonderful work. I'm just going to read the poem selected here is fairly long, so let's read it. And a short poem I wrote yesterday, just something to fill things in. It's pretty it's one of these cases where I just had a long title that just kind of explained everything. On a day's pause from the rigors of metastases, we walked through Laurel Hill Cemetery, you and I. We have returned to see the lion, his human-like fingers of stone gripping stone where he sits above the river in the rain, high above us on a massive pedestal. Fall colors are muted now, but still beautiful against the gray. The river is rising. Bright wet leaves stick to everything. Our current distance between the dead can be measured in the peculiar family names no longer heard of, the Herknesses, the Spanks and Frinks, all folded into other nomenclatures, other families persisting. Colossal mausoleums anchor the familiar names, Elkins, Widener, Lippincott. The die is cast so early for some, there seems little variance even over time. Out over the river, I see no evidence of living things, what I think of living, movement over time. The river is moving faster and becoming muddier as it rises. Between headstones, we notice a flash of color, a red fox with sprays of white on his chest and tail, loping over wet grass between stones and monuments. He notices us, but has little concern. Our distance is insurmountable, and we do not matter. Like everything, he is dead and not dead, living and not living, as time only seems to move. The still air and the empty spaces inside the mausoleums do not support anything living. The illusion of death persists. If it is an illusion to the dead, it is quite real to the living, and not real, of course. I try to will my mind to images of those underground in various states of decay, but I cannot. That reality is unknowable. Biocentrism postulates that existence cannot suddenly become non-existence. The pallor of death has left you, and yet it is with us. Last night we watched a fire on a large screen television, a beautiful fire at the base of snowy mountains. Wind whipped flames higher, and we enjoyed it at a cellular level, something deep in us connecting to ancient advents of survival. We started noticing the points where the fire was revived as it was digitally morphed to a return of the robust fire. The fire was neither real nor without bounds, endlessly looping for the hours it was created, and we consumed it with our eyes. And what do you make of the notion that all of this may just be a vast simulation? The possibility that all of existence as we know it is something like a video game created by greater beings. Maybe we are simply dream factories firing up pre-programmed sequences of events. Just as the lion was created to honor a general whose life spanned 2 centuries and several wars in a time far removed from us and unfathomable. The lion, though stately and august, has unmistakable fear in his eyes. The sculptor could not help himself. Try as he might to create a representative lion, he kept creating himself. The knuckles that resemble exposed birch roots, his knuckles. The mouth articulating awe and terror, his mouth. The tense haunches, what he sees in his own legs. On our way back to the car, hidden under a holly tree, surrounded by a manicured hedge, we stumble across a remembrance in mosaic. Tiny bright tiles that have been assembled to create a map of this exact location. You would hardly notice it unless you just happen upon it, or already know from some divine guidance that it is here. We are walking past Millionaire's Row now. I imagine straight lines leading up to mountains, well-planned grids of cities laid out in valleys all around the world. Uniform roads, regulated development, routines and codicils. There is sense in the thoughts, order in the musings, civilization, even at arm's length, returning us to the rest of our lives. And I'll finish up with, if I can find it here real quick, just a poem, a much shorter poem I wrote yesterday, so it's kind of still new and fresh and has dew on it. It's called Shift. She drank her way into 3 dimensions on cheap wine in Rittenhouse Square, where the rats run free at night. She had been sculpting blockheads, treating the cranial planes painterly, capturing elements as one might the sea. Drunk, she lopped off a corner of the temple and freed the bust from its rigid geometry into a rounded spatial circumferential pate. She kept going, rounding the facial anatomy of the anonymous model rented for the day for their distinctive look and ability to sit still. The sculpture became so realistic, it began having nosebleeds and developed acne. Her once disappointed instructor praised her for her newfound discovery of representation. He even offered hope that she might one day provide God services, rendering full-fledged functioning human machines from the dust. She smiled and continued working her way around the newly realized cranium filled with thoughts of war and pleasure and disgrace. Thank you. And
Thank you so much. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
oh no, just thanks again to everyone, and look forward to hearing the rest of the work. And congratulations, Caitlin. That's wonderful.
Thank you so much. And yeah, I'm totally loving the chat driven adulation. I mean, it's a little bit different than a very, very loud round of applause, but it's absolutely slightly more articulate. So make sure that we're checking in on the chat too. Our next poet up, and again, I'm just dropping bios in the chat, is Jess Hretia. Is it Hretia? Would that be how you would pronounce it?
It's very weird, but Christian. It makes no sense. Hi, yeah, I'm Jess, and I'm so grateful to have been chosen as a runner-up, and also just to be here. It's so interesting. I can tell like so many people here must know each other like deeply, and it's like interesting to be an outsider coming in, and also like warming anyway, even though I'm not necessarily part of it. So thank you. So yeah, I'll read 2 poems, and and this is the one that was chosen as a runner-up. It's called Plural. Plural are the ants and the petals, the smooth red turned orange, turned the beginnings of wilt. Plural are the legs of the ants I drown, spraying their tiny bodies. I don't want this, but do. And plural are the presses of my index finger, the trigger. The ants stopped dead in their busy tracks, frozen on the windowsill as they keep coming up from the baseboards. Plural on the stems of the tulips, on the rims of the mason jars I emptied. Plural are the bunches I bought, the delight, a bit of ground I had forgotten there was to lay on. Plural were the bottle caps I poured from the jar into the trash. Plural were the years I worked to save them, and not the ants or the plants I abandon outside. Plural are the drops that do not fall, that I do not weep for the ants, but have wept for myself. Plural were the boy's fists against the back of my skull, the lessons he tried to teach me. Plural were the spiders he saved, the dishware he repurposed to carry them free. Plural were the ants I murdered, thoughtless before he taught me otherwise. Plural are the ways we move through the world, this hand doing this, the other doing that. Plural are the ants the next morning, stiff where I left them, not at all coming up. All right. This next one is called The Aftermath. The people in my house don't touch each other. We learned that touching was some kind of crisis, the not touching the aftermath, the shock still setting in a decade later. Though lately I want to be a hug person, and the people outside my house seem like they have so much to offer. But my father is upset I don't love him, trust him, hug him anymore. And when I refuse, he jokes my no must mean yes, and still our arms collide on two small couches. I flinch and pull away from my body, his body, all of our bodies piled one on top of the other in close contact. I must say I like it this way. I haven't talked to my father since last Christmas. Our arms don't bleed into one another on two small couches or when he picks up a new hobby, holds his hurt to the light and passes it back to me. I let my brother see me cry and even touch me last year. Now I give him a hug on his birthday and still we joke about it. This is the aftermath of touching, learning to inhabit the body again, flinch with the history and hold it anyway. I've made the last 3 years into an offering the people in my house never taught me. My limbs held out in church basements, breweries, and gay bars. The world offers us too many things, both good and bad, and this is the aftermath. We learn to touch and be touched, contact each other when in crisis. Trust me when I say this. The history of touching is a hard one, but just yesterday I reached for my sad friend's hands across the table so casually. My cold fingers pressed between her warm palms has me hoping, surely. The people I know now touch each other gently, know that contact is a kind of crisis worth its every aftermath. We know the world is both the flinching and the reaching. Cold hands, warm palm, trust me. Thank you.
Thank you so, so much. That was beautiful. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. And yeah, all right. So again, working against every urge in my body to just go on and on. But yeah, please check out the chat, and I would love now to introduce Joe Chalufo.
Hi, everybody. It's nice to be here and to hear all these great poems. I'm going to read 2 poems, one about my father that's in the current issue, and then one about my mom that was previously published by Philadelphia Stories and was chosen for their 15th anniversary edition. My parents died about 18 months apart, my mother after battling Parkinson's disease, and my father after suffering through dementia. So this poem is called Why I Never Talk About My Mother. And it's actually the one about my father, ironically. Why I never talk about my mother. When my father remembers my mother has died, when he realizes he had forgotten, and he cries, if that's the word for those great racking peals of thunder I feel against me, holding the hollow tree he has become as it waits to fall. He shudders in the sudden storm of memory, and I know I brought this down upon him, the lightning bolt loosed from my callous hand. I decided then and there I would never speak of my mother again. I would lie if he asked where she was. The dead die again and again in their remembrance. It is I who would kill her, the coward with my words. But there is this. They are also reborn in the forgetting. I become young again, the little boy he expects when the nurse tells him, I'm here, your son, here to see you. Maybe he thinks to bounce me up and down on his knee, a bronco I tried to but could never tame. Up and down goes time, rushing, fierce in its will to throw me. But in that moment of his expectation, my mother is alive and she is young and, oh my, so beautiful. I never knew how beautiful she had been, as she is again in his mind when he hears the words, your son is here. We are all young and strong and not even a little bit broken. It's why I lie. It's exactly what I wish I could see. Thank you. And this poem is called Hospice. My son says the garden is dying. Every August, it's the same. The cucumbers, which had clamored so fiercely up the lattice and across half our garden square, begin to yellow and wilt. The peppers brown, they soften. Tomatoes explode across their vines, manic. They bear more fruit than the days can hold. Look there, I tell him. See that space? Next year's garden is already growing. Seeds are in the ground, gift of the fallen. We could do nothing, and by June, there would be more tomatoes. He sees, I am certain, in only two dimensions, what is before him and what he remembers. We could do nothing. Nearby, my mother dies in slow motion, surrounded by four walls, a window she doesn't look through, cut flowers. All her words from these last long months wouldn't bend a blade of grass. We could do nothing. My son and I uproot the cucumber plants, the peppers. I wish I were strong. Eyes will open to the green and new. I try to picture the garden to come. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joe. So glad that you were able to join us today, and so wonderful, always wonderful to hear you read. And I have here, yes, Jaya Montague is up. Are we here? Yeah. I know we were back and forth in the chat, or in the participants list. Jay, are you there?
She's here. Jaya, you're
Yes.
muted. You need to unmute.
oh,
There you
sorry.
go.
Oh, there you go. Great. Thank you so much.
So, hi everyone. My name is Jaya Montague. I am very grateful to have this opportunity, and that's my window, this opportunity to read a couple of poems. I was introduced to Philadelphia Stories when I was younger, so it's really cool to be back. So I'm going to start with my poem that was submitted, and it's called A Black Body Stuffed in a Villanelle. Excuse me. One day, I'm going to be a star, immortalized on a t-shirt at a justice walk. Mama, pray that I make it to the squad car. Bury me in my hood. I don't want my soul too far, and save my voicemail for some rapper's album. Real talk. One day, I'm going to be a star. Spray paint my face on the hearse's hood, clean up the shot scar. My copper brown skin decayed to a gray cast, they'll gawk. Mama, pray that I make it to the squad car, bathing in blood for wearing a hood. This life is bizarre. My starring role on CNN, cemented like caulk. One day I'm going to be a big star. My killer will don their white hood. press my head to the tar, and slather my entrails to serve the best pork. Mama, is being a nigga all we are? The bullets still go through the cap and hood, never on par. They can't ignore me in death, even after the cleanup of chalk. One day I'm going to be a star. But Mama, if you're reading this, I didn't make it to the car. Thank you. That poem's kind of been around, kind of thinking about the theme of fearlessness and innovation around what's going on in the news recently and things that I've experienced in my life. So my second poem is, let me switch to it. My second poem is dedicated to my boyfriend, Jaquel. Love you, babe. So this is my poem called To Jaquel. I hope when they tell your story, the beginning of the plot starts with a chestnut-skinned, almond-eyed baby peering at the camera in your mom's arms, where the screen dissolves to a 2-year-old you wobbling around in your green boots. The script needs to highlight you cherish those boots. They don't understand the exposition of your story. A set with a hole in the floor and a shower head too old. No actor can memorize what you left Fraser Street with. All your trepidation of hood life guarded like arms. A Black boy with a Caesar cut, you were still a baby. Nursery rhymes of DMX rocked you to sleep like a baby. Zigzagging a football down the street in your Tim boots and gliding off the porch down the rail arms. West Philly till your fingers run cold, that's the story. Forced to a bed with the brothers you stayed with because you reached Chester at 14 years old. The climax starts as your mom gets old and the cancer drifts in her chest. You didn't stay a baby. Days where you stayed and cradled her hand with yours when you wanted to run into the night with your boots. The producers make you the hero of the story and CGI vibranium under your arms to show that warriors don't always need arms. When they flash back to today, you at 27 years old, they'll know that your past didn't ordain your future story. Your life is better than the edits on the cutting floor, baby. After you strut the premiere carpet in your diamond boots, hand deliver roses to the young boy you started with. Let your children that you watch your movie with know now the DVD case has battered arms and the disc doesn't run as fast as your boots, but good films never grow old. You're still that beautiful baby holding scenes to tell your story. When your skin wrinkles and your eyes old, cuddle your reels like a baby so they can start to tell your story. Thank you. And then my last one is really short. I wrote it a while ago, doesn't have a title, but so it's untitled. So it is, my confessions hang on pub lights, both in Black vests and in white collars. The separation of my bartender and priest is the hand they cradle wine with, anointed in 2 for $5 Crown Royale shots. Stumbling to God's kingdom is easier when Sally's Corner Tavern has stained glass too. And thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I always appreciate the connection between. So this is me going on and on, but I love the form, the choice of form. It makes so much sense in your poem, and it was just a really, really wonderful use of the villanelle, and I appreciate that. Great, cool, yay. And yeah, everybody make sure that you're reading your the chats because these are terrific, and I want to make sure everybody gets the flowers thrown at their feet, the metaphorical chat flowers. So I would now love to welcome S. Erin Baptiste to the stage. What are we calling this? The square. So welcome. Thank you so much. I'm so excited.
Thank you, Courtney, and thank you, Philadelphia Stories, for such a full and beautiful day. I have two poems for you all today. One is an editor's choice. Thank you again for featuring this work. It is a cento, meaning it is a poem that is made up entirely of borrowed language. Warning, do not eat your fortune. 40 dating reminders every woman over 40 needs to hear now. 1, you are not a ghost. 2, welcome the change coming into your life. 3, the world may be your oyster, but that doesn't mean you'll get its pearl. 4, you must try or hate yourself for not trying. 5, birds are entangled by their feet, and men by their tongues. 6, land is always in the mind of flying birds. 7, nothing is as good or bad as it appears. 8, benefit by doing things that others give up on. 9, alas, the onion you are eating is someone else's water lily. 10, in case of fire, keep calm, pay bill, and run. 11, a man without aim is like a clock without hands, as useless if it turns as if it stands. 12, you are often asked if it is in yet. 13, try everything once, even the things you don't think you will like. 14, bend the rod while it is still hot. 15, you learn from your mistakes. You will learn a lot today. 16, never cut what you can untie. 17, remember this, duct tape can fix anything, so don't worry about messing things up. 18, finish your work on hand. Don't be greedy. 19, happiness is often a rebound from hard work. 20, if your desires are not extravagant, they will be rewarded. 21, your tongue is your ambassador. 22, hard words break no bones, fine words butter no parsnips. 23, your mouth may be moving, but nobody is listening. 24, think of mother's exhortations more. 25, don't worry, half the folks you know are below average. 26, accept yourself. 27, if everyone is a worm, you should be a glowworm. 28, it's tough to be fascinating. 29, sometimes you just need to lay on the floor. 30, the quotes that you do not understand are not meant for you. 31, today is an ideal time to water your personal garden. 32, patience is bitter, but its fruit is sweet. 33, the secret of staying young is good health and lying about your age. 34, take the chance while you still have the choice. 35, being alone and being lonely are two different things. 36, some dream of fortunes, others dream of cookies. 37, today is the tomorrow we worried about yesterday. 38, next time you have the opportunity, go on a roller coaster. 39, when all else seems to fail, smile for today and just love someone. 40, if you eat a box of fortune cookies, anything is possible. And I have a quick one. It's a Saturday night and a date poem, so ties in. Date night. It's Saturday again, and soon the streets of Old Town will be littered with lovers. The autumn air will thicken with sugary coffees, cream sauces, and seared meats, drawing out the lacquer-eyed couples. Their palms weaving tightly together like a loom, they will limbo under string lights, entire scene awash in wanting. South of Union Avenue, my telephone only reflects back the same indifferent blackness as the September sky. Full of Pinot and bored with staring at the long shadow engraved on the dinner chair opposite mine, I trick my body into its usual flannel and solid cotton. Desperate for something to hold, I raise my sleepy window shade and a dollop of stars show themselves. I imagine the constellation as arms, whole galaxies coalesced, ready to embrace. Thank you.
Thank you so, so much. This is wonderful. And yeah, it was so great to hear that Cento aloud. I think that your performance of that was just stunning. And a lot of people were commenting on the humor, and I'm not gonna go on and on, but the humor is only part of it. There's so much in that that's just like deeply unsettling. So I appreciate both halves of that poem a lot. Thank you so, so much. And yes, I'm thrilled to present next, and I copied and pasted. Here we go. The final reader of this year's Crimmins contest readers, before we move back in time briefly, is Judd Hess. And welcome, Judd.
Thank you so very much. I wanted to thank Courtney and everybody at Philadelphia Stories. Thank you so very much. Poetry so often feels like such a solitary discipline, that having a community like this has been very, very nice today. Thank you so very much. I'll read two as well. The first being the one that was chosen as for the editor's choice, called Dad, Because You Made Me Destroyer of Worlds, Yours Too. To you, connoisseur of cave mushrooms, imperious orderer of the underground, when you finally shuffle out from your hidey hole into the clean, random dark and look up in desperation again after a turn of stale seasons, to you, gruff reactionary, to you, bigot, night will read as though I, devilishly, will have collected with the left hand a swath of stars and shaken them out again from between thumb and forefinger, familiarly, both too brilliant and made too strange. And then a second piece, Fort Necessity, that I wrote just a few months ago. From the contours on this hand, I learned the topography of my country, the whorls of homesteader tills and ox tracks, the erosion of knuckles where Meade's men knelt, river bends like coiled cowhide, red, 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 the spade creases where they flung the dead, the stretch and vector of stubby aspiration and the ivory claw crowning each like a rotunda, frescoed and overrun, buttressed with old lies like the breastworks of Fort Necessity and the apotheosis of perpetual rebellion conceived in its blooded brains. America has always been a clenched fist, smashing bruises against truths we refuse to open to, for it is loss we cannot abide, though all else perish from the earth. Again, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so, so much. This is great. Wonderful, wonderful to hear, everybody. And again, I just want to applaud everybody who submitted and sent work in this year. It feels like this year is going to always sort of have a place of like, and you did it this year forever, because I think that there was just such a slightly heavier lift, I think, for so many of us this year. And I really do just want to appreciate even more all of that work. And I'll just say that one of the poems that I became aware of just before, like, I guess I became aware of it in January or February of last year of 2020, was the poem that Ian Haley Pollock chose for the Crimmins contest for 2020. And that became really, really important to me in the first few uncertain months of this year. And I just wanted to thank Carrie Ann for that. So I'm gonna welcome Karen Ebert. I imagine this is an old bio, I apologize, but I just pasted into the chat. Thank you so much for being here, and I'm so glad that we have some time to hear you read.
Oh my gosh. Hi, thank you, Courtney. Way to like choke me up right before I read. Oh my gosh. That was really nice. Thank you. I'm really excited to be able to celebrate that Ian Haley Pollock chose my poem for 2020. So this was kind of an older poem that I submitted, and it was kind of strange how it kind of encapsulated the whole sort of pandemic anxiety. So I'm just going to go ahead and read it. Called Milk Sickness. A mother worries as her children sleep. Sometimes I see snakes in a milk pail, noisy tumbles of coils and scales. I lie awake, steeled, vigilant, absorb the discord of writhing bodies in my opaque world. I wonder if they know they swim in sacrifice. Maybe they think it's water edged by meadow. Maybe they dream the spinning of their skins will loose them to catch the scent of mouse or egg in a dreamscape of venom and froth. Or is it panic? Black, thick, rich like cream, panic that weighs them down, roiling blind only to find they're trapped and soused in humors. Maybe the milk's a mirror, a mother of pearl shine that splashes the black snake hole in my eye. If I stare at the waves, the sloshes of nacre, maybe my tongue will smell a way out, lift me with a swell as the vipers sink like weighted calcite beneath the tide, black pearls lost at sea. Maybe then stillness will claim me, a silence only I can taste, like stolen butter. Alrighty, so the next one I'm gonna read is, it's a golden shovel, and it uses the first line of every stanza of the poem Truth by Gwendolyn Brooks. Familiar Haze after Gwendolyn Brooks. How we've been hammered and pounded thin. What would happen if we no longer absorbed the blows? If we pulled down the sun in its swelter, our hands afire with strength? A numbness comes from living at the wrong end of knuckles. Though a kiss with a fist never fools us, we are led to believe it is a shelter. All we have wished for, we've flung away. How we've wept our million odes to mercy for what was born in the grip of him who wields so shimmering a blade. Shall the earth below our bellies not quiver? We who greet his brawn with embrace, we who not only endure the night years, but also shudder awake at dawn. Is it not sweet, our first taste of this newly dappled light? Gone is the remnant of dream, gone, sisters. How we felt it flash into the safety of our sleep, sweet, the hope of release. Is it not joyous our eyes have opened? Is it not we who prayed to finally wake? Just now we feel it beginning to form, this dear thick cry rising in the throat. Yet how firm now is his hold, how warm and how dark. We lie silent and watch from his bed. He hangs his coat and hat. His boots hit the floor heavily. Okay. So I have two more little short poems, and I'm kind of trying to move from anxiety to a little bit more angsty and sexy so that you're not left with that heaviness. So this is called Geometry, and it's out in Main Street Rag. Geometry. Winter beach, our empty terrace, divided by dawn. Line segments bisect my legs, crystallized honey trails. Newborn rays stretch across my skin, where summertime's memory lingers. You told me once a curve is simply a line broken at every point. The arcs of my thighs bend shadows. I trace the darkness to its source, use the echo of your kiss to measure grief's circumference. Yeah. And then the last one is called Obad with Ink and Honey. Rays suspend dreamscape. I know where you'll be. I can't resist the view. Wonder if you know I watch you every morning. You sunrise garden and tend your girls. Low yogi squat, malasana, back hunched in love. I feel you murmur to them. Earlier I swam in ink, a storm thickened sea. As indigo swells rushed in, I barely glimpsed you on the dream shore. I can't speak the language of flowers or even know their names, but I imagine I'm the bud you touch, scarlet, pulsing, newly opened. On the petals, your hands move like honey, gold-leafed veins brushed by the sun. You work sure and careful as a midwife. So eager to coax life from darkness, you hold the bloom in your palm, where the small of my back aches to press. Thank you.
Hooray, that was wonderful. What a, yeah, like you said, a journey. That was great. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, wonderful. I'm so happy that we again had this opportunity to hear from you. And I am going to pass all of my responsibility over to Chad Frame of the Montgomery County Poet Laureate program and let him take it away.
Thank you, Courtney, and thank you, Crimmins winners, past and present. That was wonderful reading. I was one of the preliminary judges this year, and I was absolutely wowed by everything. So I just wanted to say, wonderful job. So, all right, well, I'm sorry we're a little ahead of schedule, but we move right along. So, so we at the Montgomery County Poet Laureate program are really happy to talk about our outgoing laureate, David Gaines, and introduce our new 2021 laureate. It was obviously a very unprecedented, challenging, all those words. We know what the year was. So, I mean, it was a hell of a year. And I want to say that Dave did an amazing job, especially considering the circumstances. I mean, he has an energy and a passion that he was able to pivot and get his project off the ground, which I'll let him talk about if he wants. But I am going to put his bio in the chat for you. And sure, why not? I'll read it too. So hold on. There we are. So David A. Gaines, or Dave G., is a Black poet, actor, and filmmaker born and raised in the greater Philadelphia area. His work examines Blackness, masculinity, Christianity, and mental health through an intersectional lens. In 2018, he won multiple championship titles, including 2017 College Union's Poetry Slam Invitational Champion, 2018 Fuse Poetry Slam Champion, 2018 Philly Pigeon Champion, and ranked 4th in the nation in the 2018 Individual World Poetry Slam. In 2020, Dave's poetry film, Fine China, won the 5th Weimar Poetry Film Award, and he was awarded the title Poet Laureate in Pennsylvania's Montgomery County. His work has been featured in the National Black Arts Festival, International Human Rights Art Festival, Was Good Magazine, Right About Now, Vice Media, among others. He also loves puns, yo-yos, and is very enthusiastic about pickles. But I'd be remiss if I didn't also mention his newly out book, Soft Boy, which I will put the links in here. This book is incredible. You should all go out and buy it right now. So hold on, I'm gonna put the links to his website and his book right in the chat. Okay, there we go. And if you don't mind, before I let Dave take the stage, we are gonna play a little video that we made as part of his tenure. And let's see if I can not manage to bungle sharing the screen. Hold on. Let's see, here we go. And let's see if I remember to share sound also. Let's see, there we go. All right, I'm gonna play this.
So many people say like, oh, I'm a preacher's kid, you know, and my daddy preached every Wednesday at church or whatever. But for my family, preaching was a family business. You know, my grandfather owned a church on 25th and Warren in South Philly. And, you know, my dad took it over. And for all my childhood, I was going to be like the third, you know, generation, sort of like take over the church. So until I was like 12, I wanted to be a preacher. That's sort of when I fell in love with performance. Poetry specifically gave me a voice. It was sort of this thing. No one in my family writes poetry. It's this very weird thing. Like, everyone sings, you know, my family full of singers. But I'm like, hey, like, I like poems. Like, you know, I just fell in love with language. And it was very important to me that no one else did it in my family, because I was like, this is mine. You know, like, no one encouraged this but me. This is my own thing. This is my own passion. And so I started saying things on stage that I would never be able to anywhere else. So it was this sort of reclamation for me of identity, of voice, of individuality. Growing up in the church just made me so, it made everything was so serious as a kid. Everything was life or death, you know, it was heaven or hell. And that's made my artistry very goofy. Like, now I just like to have fun. I do think there's a aspect of my art that is very activist, and I like to talk about social issues and things, but it's always with an air of levity, because I think especially Black people should be able to just have fun in a world that, you know, sort of doesn't want us to survive. And specifically growing up with this sort of weight on my shoulders of like, you know, I have to be doing God's will and, you know, all these things that I was told as a child. Poets are just the coolest, you know? Poets are going to save the world, because poets are the keepers of the stories of the world. We hold on to the things that the world wants to forget, the histories that people want to forget because they're bloody and they're ugly. And the poets, we don't have that luxury of forgetting. Like, we have to remember. And I'm happy to be that person. I'm a reflection of the world. I hold a mirror up to the world and says, like, and I say, this is what you are, you know. And I love it. Yeah.
So I think that said it better than I certainly could. And I want to just do a little quick link as well. I'm sure he's going to talk about it, but to Dave's project, which was Full Circle Microgrants, and that is going to be in the chat here. All right, and so without further ado, I'm going to give you Dave Gaines.
Thank you so much for that lovely introduction, Chad. And what's up, Lit Life? I'm so happy to be here. And I'm gonna start my timer because I am notoriously loquacious, just like the rest of my preacher family. So yeah, I have the unenviable task of trying to summarize all that this year has meant. And I can't even, it's hard for me to believe that it's already been a year. I feel like this year just kind of flew by. But yeah, I guess I'll talk a little bit about it because this is, even though for a lot of us, this has been a very challenging year and a very difficult year. The Montgomery County Poet Laureate program has made this one of the best years of my life. You know, I'm very grateful to everyone involved, especially Joanne Leva and Chad and Joanne Coppins. You know, they really had my back. And so because of their support, we were able to, you know, in the midst of this turbulent, like no one, especially, you know, I became Poet Laureate in April, and that was just when, you know, everyone was sort of freaking out about COVID. So we sort of had to adapt, and even the project that I proposed in my application, we ended up not being able to do because of you know, the protocols. So what we ended up doing was creating a fund, a relief fund for people in the greater Philadelphia area. And because of the hard work and the generous donations of people in our community, people who sort of recognize that, you know, now more than ever, we needed concrete methods of support. Donated, and we were able to create a fund, and it's called the Full Circle Microgrant Fund. And where that name came from, it was sort of about, you know, it was a fund specifically for writers. And that was something that I noticed. There was a lot of funds at the time, and there still are, for artists, but there weren't many specifically for writers. And I felt like there was a disservice sort of being done to writers because obviously all art is important, but I think writers, and especially poets, and I know I'm a little biased in saying that, we have a difficult task. You know, we have a very important job and a very unappreciated job. And so I sort of wanted to create something that would just be a small little support pillar in some individuals' lives. And we were able to help, I believe it was five poets in the Philadelphia, I think the areas we served were, and I'm not even gonna try to name them all because the way my memory is set up, that would not go well. But it was essentially every, I know it was Allegheny, and I just said I'm not gonna do it. So I'm gonna hold myself to that. Yeah, but anyway, we made this fun, and the outcome was ridiculous. We were only able to do one round, but I've spoken to the recipients, and just even more than the financial comfort, I think there was a larger sort of ethos about being supported by, you know, people who are virtually strangers, but people that see your humanity and that see you as deserving of support and of relief. I feel like that made a huge difference, at least in the individuals' lives that I spoke to. So yes, that's program. And if you're able, continue to donate, because that will better equip the fund to continue to, obviously we're not out of the woods yet in regards to the pandemic, and people are very much still struggling. So if you're able, I know Chad put the links in the chat, please check that out, because it would be amazing for the program to be able to continue to, you know, just bless the members of, you know, bless the people in the community who are the reason that we're able to even come together like this as just, you know, lovers of the craft of poetry. Yeah. And so very, very quickly, I would just want to talk about how great and how amazing my time has been. This has been extremely difficult for me personally, like, you know, having to live at home and just not being able to leave, and also feeling sort of and being, you know, impacted financially myself, because all of my income really comes from shows and poetry and performing. Um, you know, I was really sort of struggling. And so seeing things like Joanne linking me with Danica and Alex, and even shooting that video, which was, shout out to them, because it's an amazing, they're amazing producers and filmmakers. You should definitely check them out, Bare Bones Productions. And literally every time Joanne introduces me to everyone, they gas me up, like, and make me feel like I'm a superstar. And I don't know if they knew that, but that just did wonders, wonders for me. So, and Chad was always very understanding and always just one of the most hardworking people I've ever met in my life. So definitely show love to Chad. And Joanne is just, Coppins is one of the most dependable people I've ever met as well. So really thank you, everyone. And let me stop. Let me collect myself. I don't want to get too emotional. I want to do some poetry for y'all, if that's cool. I'm going to be doing poems from my debut book, Soft Boy, which Chad put links in the chat. If you're interested in it, or if you like it, if you just think I'm cute, please feel free to purchase it. You know, it helps me out a lot. So I'm going to start off with a poem I did last year. And the reception was pretty good. So I'm gonna just start off with a little warm-up poem. If you like it, give me a little heart in the screen. If you don't know how to do that, just type in the chat like cool or whatever. Respond however makes you comfortable. This poem is called A Poem for My Ex. Fuck you. All right, this next poem is gonna be a bit longer. We're gonna dive a bit deeper and get a little more raw. Just want to clear the air. I've honestly been feeling extremely heavy recently, so it's just nice to, you know, just kind of get that shitty ex energy out into the open. I bet a lot of y'all can relate to that. But on a more serious note, there is a lot of Black death on the news right now. And a lot of Black people being murdered by the police. And I've had to completely remove myself from social media and just a lot of social circles, because I am in grief right now. So I want to do a poem. Depending on how time goes, this may be the only poem I do, but it is a very important poem to me. It's called Church and State from the book. It's a contrapuntal, so it's really like 3 poems in one. And sort of the idea behind this poem is I believe that I was fascinated by it in the process of, because a lot of this book was written during this year, and I became fascinated with the relationship between church and state, and it almost seemed to mirror an abusive relationship, specifically the one that I saw in like my household growing up, where the church sort of enables the state to commit acts of violence cyclically. And I believe it's very relevant right now. So I'll just get right into it. Church and state. Oh, before I start, I said it's 3 poems in one. I'm going to read them consecutively. I'll just say 1 and 2 and 3, so you know when we're transitioning. Church and state. 1. Separation is only temporary. I stopped going to church. A few months back, I respectfully declined. She is all sanctuary and survival. My father only spoke in violence, claimed victim, and lied to protect public perception. My father found us in Texas. My mother reads bedtime stories. I kept waiting for him to change. I want to believe in their innocence, but power can't be destroyed. even if you take off the uniform. When I say fuck 12, I mean they are not God's elect. My father doesn't take no for an answer. I feel his presence even in his absence. Is this a haunting? In high school, he threatened me. I lied bold in his face. He discovered the truth. My eye took weeks to heal. He says never lie to him again. In his home, in an arbitrary pool, one derives authority on their own time. 2. Escape despite my mother's invitations. She asked me to pray over our meal. I replied, why didn't you divorce him sooner? She fled us to Texas to break free like a hurricane. Harvey displaced, and Lakewood kept its doors shut. Seeing must be believing. My mother staged a happy marriage with knives hidden under the mattress. She prays over her meal alone. I want forgiveness to be enough, even when you don't know you have it. Every cop I know goes to church. They are not the disciples, yet they claim a higher power. I ignore my father's calls. Is this conditioning? He caught me smoking weed, asked, where did you get this? No snitching. He punched me. I turned the other cheek. An off-duty officer killed a man. 3 years prior, my father baptized me. I often wonder how to introduce a person to God. Church and state. 3. Separation is only temporary escape. I stopped going to church despite my mother's invitations. A few months back, she asked me to pray over our meal. I respectfully declined. I replied, why didn't you divorce him sooner? She is all sanctuary and survival. She fled us to Texas to break free. My father only spoke in violence like a hurricane. Harvey displaced, claimed victims, and Lakewood kept its door shut and lied to protect public perception. Seeing must be believing. My father found us in Texas. My mother staged a happy marriage. My mother reads bedtime stories with knives hidden under the mattress. I kept waiting for him to change. She prays over her meal alone. I want to believe in their innocence. I want forgiveness to be enough. But power can't be destroyed, even when you don't know you have it, even if you take off the uniform. Every cop I know goes to church. When I say fuck 12, I mean they are not the disciples. They are not God's elect, yet they claim a higher power. My father doesn't take no for an answer. I ignore my father's calls. I feel his presence even in his absence. Is this conditioning? Is this a haunting? In high school, he caught me smoking weed. He threatened me, asked, where did you get this? I lied bold in his face, no snitching. My eye took weeks to heal. He punched me. I turned the other cheek. He says never lie to him again. An off-duty police officer killed a man in his home. 3 years prior, my father baptized me in an arbitrary pool. I often wonder how one derives authority to introduce a person to God on their own time. Thank you. So with a little bit of time I have left, thank you so much. I'm gonna read this last poem. It's a poem that got a lot of love during the release, and so and it was actually published for the first time by the Montgomery County Poet Laureate program. So, what better place to do it than here as we pass the torch to the next member of our clan. The poem is called "Fine China." I learned to be a man from the china cabinet in my grandmother's home, a porcelain patriarchy housed in his wooden body. My inheritance behind his tall glass face passed down for so long, it feels like he's always been there. My grandmother says the fine china is for special occasions. This is one of her favorite lies. There is never an occasion that warrants him open or vulnerable. I know he's only there to impress guests. The dining room, his stage, he performs stability. Every man I know is a performer. More display than practice, or practicing some display learned from other men. My father tells me boys don't cross their legs, so I tell my brother the same. I tell my friends I've lost my virginity, and they tell me it's about time. I've lied about my number of sexual partners so often I forget the real number. I'm most manly when I forget. My grandmother says, boy, you better not run around my fine china. Even she walks around him cautious, how easily breaking becomes another's burden. Fragile things take up the most space. My father believes a man should provide everything for his family except an apology. He taught me, see, I'm already over time. He taught me women love persistence. If you ask and she says no, it's only because you haven't asked enough. A woman taught me rejection, and I gave her the resentment that belonged to him. When I asked my grandmother where all of this came from, she says the gold-rimmed teacups came from a mother, and their twin saucers also from a mother, and the egg white plates painted with blue flowers from another mother. But we did not build the kiln that hardened you rigid boy. So I ask, what does a man leave behind? And she says, nothing. Some nights, while my family sleeps, I imagine sneaking inside the dining room, grabbing the cabinet by his neck and throwing him to the floor. He shatters. I take off my father's shoes and walk barefoot through the glass. With each step, I hear a crunch beneath my feet that echoes his voice. He says, boys will be boys. So I tell him this is a mutiny of manhood. I paint my nails bright colors and cry for no reason. He says, boys don't cry. So I sweat and purge his poison. I tell all my niggas I love them and they say it back. I sing a love song about a man and don't change the pronouns. He says, pause. So I move backwards. Rigor mortis before bitten dust. Breath before conception. And I hear my grandmother's uncaged laughter. Her joints say there is just too much time in the day. So we kick up our feet and rest. Thank you so much, y'all. Again, my name is David Gaines. If you like what you heard, a lot of these poems are about like church and gender and just performance in all the different ways. So yeah, you can pick it up at my website, Chad put in there. And yeah, thank you again to the Poet Laureate folks. I really can't explain how much love I have for y'all. But please continue doing the work that you do. And you know that I'm always here for y'all. So yeah, thanks for having me, y'all.
Dave, thank you. That was incredible. And we have certainly not seen the last of you. You're not going anywhere. So once a laureate, always a laureate. So I'll give you guys about a couple seconds to process all that. That was incredible. And I want to introduce our judge for the 2021 competition. A lot of you had the good fortune of being in his masterclass earlier, Ernest Hilbert. I am going to paste his bio in the chat. Hold on a moment. And sure, why not? I'll read it. So, Ernest Hilbert is the author of 60 sonnets, All of You on the Good Earth, and Caligulin, which was selected as the winner of the 2017 Poets Prize. His fourth collection, Last One Out, appeared in March 2019. He lives in Philadelphia, where he works as a rare book dealer and book critic for the Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal. His poem, Mars Ultor, was included in Best American Poetry 2018, and his poems appear in Yale Review, American Poetry Review, Harvard Review, Parnassus, Sewanee Review, Hudson Review, Boston Review, The New Republic, American Scholar, and the London Review. Visit him at his website at ernesthilbert.com. And I have some more links for you. Here are all of his many books, which I'm going to pop in there. Please buy them. They're awesome. And we have a collection of his poems up on our Montgomery County Poet Laureate website here. But I will let him speak for himself. Please welcome Ernest Hilbert.
Thank you, Chad. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, everyone. It's been wonderful. And thank you to everyone who was in the class earlier. I thought that went very well, and I was very happy about that. So I want to say, it was really a great honor and pleasure, in fact, to be asked to judge the finalists for the Montgomery County Poet Laureateship for this coming year. It's something I take very seriously. I will tell you something you probably all agree with, which is that poetry is not a competition. It is not a matter of being better. To me, it's a matter of being different and being surprising. And all of the finalists were. But it was my remit to select one. And so I reread them a number of times, and I thought a lot about it. I took a lot of notes, and I finally selected the one that I did. But before I do that, I want to say a few words about the other. There were 4 finalists who were given to me, their packets. And I would like to just say a few words about all of them, because I think they're all worthy of doing that. I mean, one of the reasons things like competitions are useful is not only in selecting someone, in this case, to perform an actual duty, which is good, but also to survey a field of talent and see what is out there. And I look for things that are great similarities and trends, but also what makes everyone different, and the different innovations applied were applied by each individual. Kathleen Shaw was one of the finalists. Is Kathleen Shaw with us right now? If so, I want to say thank you. I mean, they were fine poems. And, I encountered a very real sense of place in these poems. And that's something that is not easy to do. We're more disembodied and virtual and mobile than ever before. So maybe we don't think as much about place, but place is very important. I felt a sadness and a yearning of real life as it is lived in those places. And I felt fine attention was paid to unassuming objects, the way they represent both personal and public histories. She engaged me with what I felt to be deftly handled appeals to nostalgia and sensations of loss, and a pleasing nuance of phrase through which these are delivered, because she shows us that even if we choose not to change, the world changes around us, and we must adapt, and we change even if we don't want to. Much of our emotional lives is taken up with sensations of loss and disorientation, maybe now more than ever. And we must repeatedly find our balance. So I want to read just how she does this so well from a poem. It's just a short extract from her poem, Motherhood, 1970. She'd been raised in a house where shiny silverware sat in soldiery rows and laundry saluted from clotheslines. The rules then for clotheslines were shirts upside down and sheets with exactly 3 clothespins. Then, one day, the rules blew away. And she tells us this whole sort of story of a life and change and motherhood through this, but that then one day the rules blew away. That's something that is liberating and frightening at the same time. So I thought that was very well done, and I really enjoyed those poems. Another one of the finalists was Crystal Stone, and I found her poetry quite daring, actually. It was incisive. I found it at times exhilarating, where I was sort of, holding on to the edge of the desk, getting a vertigo from these poems. The artistry is very clear, but so also is an almost palpable sense of danger. That's something that keeps you on your toes when you're reading some poets, where the poems are sort of like a grenade with the pin pulled out, if that's not too obnoxious a metaphor. And you can't take your eyes off them. And she has a very fine ear, an audacious artistic sensibility, and she easily captivated this reader. We see this. I only have time to read some short excerpts, but this is from each poet, that is. This is from her poem, Self-Portrait in the Insectarium, which already is an exciting title. Do you notice the insects are dying? Polar vortex, they say. Magnetic north is shifting, they say, unlike wings. My heart is beating properly. I cannot caterpillar on the tree to change. Even if I could, I would wake in a glass room, low ceiling. There would be snow and sun so close, glossy light, warmth out of reach. So that was from Crystal Stone's Self-Portrait in the Insectarium. Another finalist was George Phillip. And I found his poems very ambitious and challenging in the best of ways. They are unafraid to be philosophical, and they are fiercely intelligent. They stimulated me as I read them, and they surprised me, which is, as I've said before, it's really something that I appreciate as a reader and a lover of poetry, is to be shocked a little bit. Not through something that's cheaply done, as some beginning poets might do, as I probably did when I was younger. I mean, shocked just by the freshness and excitement that's right there on the page, or when you hear it, when it's in the air. His poems are never satisfied with half measures or easy answers. So in a sense, they're stern. They're strong poems, intellectually powerful. And here's an example. There's this discursive rhetorical mode that George works in. This is an excerpt from Extrasensory Perception. The most glorious mysteries are found indirectly, like scientists peering through telescopes at nearly indiscernible wobbles and refractions of celestial light that reveal the existence of planets and phantom moons hiding behind billions of miles of wide open space, where vision and gravity and time itself get lost. So that's from George Phillip's Extrasensory Perception. And now this brings us to the new Montgomery County Poet Laureate, who is Paul Siegel. And I'm going to confess, good work, Paul. I did not know Paul lived in Montgomery County. I had no idea. I was aware of Paul, of course, and I thought he lived in Philadelphia, where I live. So it was a complete surprise to me when I was told that that finalist number 4 was in fact Paul Siegel. These poems are not, I can tell now they are in a style of ones I have read before of his in the past, going back over a decade. But these are ones I'd never seen, and they have a new, I mean, he is more recently a father, and so I don't know if it's owes to that or the anticipation of becoming a father. But, and I'm not saying these poems are more mature, but they are more settled in a way. They are less manic, and I'm using that word in the best possible sense, than some of the earlier work. They're more focused and more settled, and also a little bit more worried, which is something that so many people are now, and we feel it. So I found them very memorable. These poems, they're composed in what I found to be an astonishingly nimble style. You know, they sort of came right off the page. He uses a ludic method, which is to say that refers to wordplay as a way of creating meaning and undermining meaning and deferring meaning and changing meaning. But in these poems, you know, the speaker of the poems confronts troubling matters, as do we as we read it, but with a disarming sense of humor and even an affinity for play, like sort of a saving levity will enter sometimes to allow us, it's like a buoyancy, so we're not completely weighed down by these things, the grave matters that are approached. You know, it's a style that communicates subtly and gratifyingly. And, you know, I feel that we're moved in ways that are impossible to pin down because the poems are not maudlin. They are still very emotional, though. And that's difficult. It's easy to accidentally find yourself becoming somewhat sentimental, even at the best of times, when dealing with things that are very emotional. You know, and these poems have a sense of personality too. Not that they all don't, they all do, in fact, but this had a particular sort of strut or sprezzatura to it, a sort of lightness to it in its execution. You know, and these poems are alive to artistic possibilities amid otherwise overwhelming waves of stimuli that we get, you know, especially in the city and through all our devices. You know, and these poems allow the speaker anyway, and also the reader to ultimately overcome dejection and frustration with a sense of grace, compassion, and wit, which is most welcome. So I'm going to read an excerpt from a poem that's titled Scroller. And it's a poem that captures so much, the flow of thought, the way we think, well, the not so simple act of crossing a city street is captured in this poem. I'm being told my internet connection is unstable. Can you hear me? Am I still there? Give me a thumbs up. Okay, I just got a sign saying you are unstable. I was like, gee, thanks. Onward. Like, I didn't know that. So the poem Scroller, which I hope he'll read as well. I'm just going to do a little bit. So even just crossing the street in Philadelphia can be a wondrous and terrifying one, a terrifying experience that is. So the title conjures immediately, we think scroller. It's sort of the scene of careless pedestrians scrolling on their phones while they're crossing the street and not looking up, which I see out here around the University of Pennsylvania campus a lot. But also we hear the stroller, that a new parent, a new father is using to navigate the traffic and the noise with excruciating caution while taking this fragile, this infant child out into the world, into a world that seems so frightening. So here are a few lines from Scroller. And he ends this segment, this excerpt ends with one of his trademark turns towards something that makes it a little bit funny almost. And so he writes, those of the forward growling their intentions as 3 lanes of lit and beam scratched in drizzle, the ethereal engines of all those traveling on to whatever else comes next. Nights as they do, and as this one summons in a screen-like feed of commuters scrolling past, a yellow Chevy with tinted windows bleeds a 70s beat while I linger in the reflective developing wet and wait to read the intersection safe, hoping that what I'm feeling in the corner of my mouth is not another cold sore. Thank everyone who's been involved in this and all the finalists. And I want to congratulate Paul. I think he will be a fine he will acquit himself well. And Montgomery County has been lucky to have so many excellent poets laureate, and now he can continue that tradition. The baton is passed this evening, and I say, for all of us, I hope. Thank you, Paul. We wish you the best of luck, and we look forward to what you're going to bring for all of us. And for so many who are not with us right now on the screen, but who will get to know you as you help to promote the art, the ancient art of poetry. You keep the flame that is thousands of years old alive. We do not, art is not worshiping ashes, it is tending the flame. And so now I say, everyone, please congratulate Mr. Paul. I know you'll do a great job. And I even have a little martini that I will celebrate with myself. Now that I'm done, now that I've dispensed with my duties. Thank you all.
Is this me now?
All you.
Oh my God. Ernest Hilbert. I'm just so overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed by, so to follow in Dave G's footsteps on this one. Dave, you just blew everybody away. And I've watched, videos of yours, and it's so, it's humbling, it's overwhelming, and I'm honored to be next in line in the same sentence with you. I hope that everyone on the Zoom was there in the beginning so they got to hear your powerful performance. Like, I couldn't even keep myself together while you were reading, because I was like, how am I supposed to be in this with you? But I look forward to, I definitely, when this is all over and we get to see each other, I look forward to going to one of your readings and becoming friends. I feel like we would just get along, and I have a lot of respect for you, and I really look forward to following your footsteps and working with you on this Montgomery County Poetry Laureate position. And it's just wild. I'm so overwhelmed. Obviously, I'm like out of my mind. Joanne Leva, I have to thank you. I love you. It's one of those things where you just love a person and they become part of your life and your family. And you are a part of my life and a part of my family. Chad Frame, I know you were a poet laureate as well years ago, about 3 years, I believe. Yeah, something like that. All right, thank you. You are an inspiration as well. I was one of the readers of your poet laureate year. So I actually got to be a part of your process, and I had selected you as well. And it has only proven to see what you've done. I think yesterday or 2 days ago, you posted I just got published 3 times, and you put up all these links, and they are marvelous, marvelous pieces of work. So I'm glad to be working with you, and I look forward to all the help that you're going to give me this year because I'm going to need it. Ernest Hilbert, another member of my family, and it's bonkers. So I'll say my name a couple times in the poems, but I cross my name out. So the judge didn't know, it was all anonymous. But the fact that someone that I've known for years and who has become so important to me, our children are born on the same days. My birthday and Ernie's wife's birthday is the same day. It's just, and then he selects me for all this. It's just bonkers. So to have him do this, and the words that he just spoke, just the fact that he went through each of the finalists and read their work, the grace, just the character of that. This is a really special night, and to have all of you here in my kitchen, right? It's all weird. It's been a weird year. So I'm the poet laureate in Montgomery County. Dave put together a grant for artists. That was his project, right? They told me to speak to my project. Mine is, as Ernie said, now that I have a child, it just made sense to do something for the children, right? As poets, we do a Poets in the Park event. We've all read in parks somewhere, right? And I just felt like a playground is a good place to put some poetry. And, you know, events are wonderful, but, you know, every park in Montgomery County has a sign, you know, a wooden sign that has the name of the park. And I just thought, like, how cool would it be for children if there was an artifact, something three-dimensional and, you know, permanent, a poem, you know, that we put on a board, you know, we paint it, we etch into it, we burn it in, something for kids while they're playing on the swings in the playground and all that to read and think about and be inspired by and remember their whole lives maybe. I don't know what the poem will be yet. I don't know how we're going to do this. I don't know how we're paying for this, all that. But I trust that it'll all come together, and maybe we'll all invite everybody to do it, to be a part of the event. And you know, maybe it'll be on Zoom, but probably not. Hopefully it'll be in real life. So that's my project. And I think it's time for the poems, right? We good for that? Let's actually get to the poems. I also want to thank Courtney. I just duped myself. Courtney and Lit Life. Today has been phenomenal. It's been like so inspiring and breathtaking at times to hear so much brightness coming out of all of these generous poets and just genius ideas. And, you know, just thank you everybody for today. All right, I'm gonna take a drink of water and let's do some poems. Okay, this is called Forgotten Popcorn. I said several times. I said several times. I said several. I said several times. I said several times several. I said several times. This is mine. Go get your own. I mean, as we all know, this Zoom thing with everybody on mute is so weird, but thank you. Thank you. I could see the love. This one's for Ernie. This is called Scroller. December, as is such an evening. Not enough rain as to umbrella. Your 40% off one item deal is about to expire. Notified upon resurfacing at Fairmount, with my all turned south along Broad, into the oncoming composition. Do not step. Those are the forward growling their intentions as 3 lanes of lit and beams scratched in drizzle, the ethereal engines of all those traveling on to whatever else comes next. Nights as they do, and as this one summons in a screen-like feed of commuters scrolling past, a yellow Chevy with tinted windows bleeds a 70s beat while I linger in the reflective developing wet and wait to read the intersection safe, hoping that what I'm feeling in the corner of my mouth is not another cold sore. Thank you. Scary Carrot. I was supposed to sleep on the floor last night in a Marilyn Monroe costume. I'm looking forward to you ruining the rest of my weekend. I've been listening to a whole fist of unbearable music lately. I've had my shoes on since 4:38 this morning. I think Starbucks guy is faking that English accent. I remember your nurse saying I can't fix regrets. I'll do everything I can to avoid a bad outcome. I know so little about my own buried bones. I haven't had coffee since climbing the ruins of Guatemala. I've been waiting all day for you to ask me to sign your cast. I can't evaporate, but I've got time to go to the bathroom. I don't switch my Google to incognito while I'm around children. That's so creepy, I know. All right. You guys are great. Those of you on screen, I really appreciate it. Suffering Sanitizer, March 21st, 2020. Sam takes her kids on a nature walk. Needed to get out of the pandemic. 3 boys bounding like bugs in the woods. crest bird song and none other in sight. The youngest, 3 years, spies and interesting. Mom, he hesitates. Can I touch this flower or has someone else already touched it? Sinkhole. All right. This is called Updater. That the Grand Canyon is there right now. That its ants, its black feather sedimentary and switchback songs, tourists among the dung clumps. I can Google it. Images, a record, pre-existing click conditions, evidence of echoes from ago. Let's go. Uninterested in how millennia are measured or how to market to millennials. A meditation garden, how we've stroke victims and drone strike victims and unions on strike, how we've nights that close down the bar. Horizontal, headline time. The rich aren't spending, signaling a possible recession ahead. That the Grand Canyon needs no needle and thread. I'm good now, better, but I'm sure that there's a layer that's somehow still healing from everything that happened. Battalion, that the Grand Canyon squeezes a tube of maximum strength first aid, antibiotic, quick healing, medicated, soothing relief. I just remember that it's just crazy what a difference a gash nearly 40 layers deep, exposing 2 billion years a year makes. Passage, that the Grand Canyon echoes back to me, to still feeling tearful, and I could cry more, becoming soft, like I'm getting, I don't know what I'm actually getting, a companion, like a medallion around a neck, just knowing it's there, damage to imagine in this country, and I yield back the remainder of my time. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I wish we were all in the auditorium at Rosemont right now. I really do. You're all nodding, and I really appreciate it. Thank you. This is called Feeder or Wowlenhoof. I'm gonna take a drink. What's crazy is my parents live in Florida, right? And they're on this Zoom. I haven't seen my parents in over a year. My uncle, he's in Delaware. He's on this Zoom. My sister as well in Florida, she's on this Zoom. And you know, it's just remarkable. Okay, Feeder or Wowlenhoof. You put your mouth into flames because you never want to miss any false alarms. The man you just met says money is for killing, not saving. A mercury, a smoke. And if you needed any more practice recognizing the call of the normal, on the screen above, there's a wolf with a blood-covered face. Just enough and then not enough, and then not enough more. Like the minuscule agony of snacking on cookies in a 3-piece suit. Ah, poor baby. It's a whisper of functions. What was it like when you first understood insufficiency, boniness? You told your stomach you had no use for such, as the sound advice of dead silence. Like a goldfish in a sandbox, a masterpiece of shrugs over a phone. South of Tallahassee, over the Gulf of Mexico, a storm is forming, and you just keep hitchhiking like a cold sore on the subway. Record number of fires in Brazil rainforest. The very next post, burning questions we still have about Game of Thrones, unquote. You make a killing, but this goes beyond oatmeal raisin. You gotta awaken that good beige beneath them closed eyelids. So you wonder how best to fold a fitted sheet, about algorithms, about becoming another crusty old reptile with erectile dysfunction. You wonder in the dumb. But once again, you don't want Google knowing what you're reading, so you get a newspaper. You put your mouth into flames. Outside, a truck named Wowland Hoof stops to pick up the trash. And the man you just met says, "That's a damn good dirty martini right there. Got the ratio just right." Thank you. Receiver. Was Super Bowl Sunday, so I went to a poetry reading. 4 poets in honor of Black History Month. A good day to listen. Heading to the venue, I flashed back to once coming out of the subway while a police officer and her gun ascended the steps with me. Body armor thick, America by the balls. My knee-jerk thought, beautiful black cop, yours is not my poem to write. 4 Black poets in honor of Black History Month. Bullet point, Kerwin Sutherland. Bullet point, Lamont B. Steptoe. Bullet point, Marvin X. Bullet point, Kamika Williams Witherspoon. Absolutely, a good day to listen. And to each poet I listened. And for each poet I applauded. And as I applauded, I saw my hands between me and the poets, between me and the deep, heavy, sad celebrations, between me and the look on their faces after each poet ended. And I saw my hands, and they were and are still white. What can you do? Swiper, or where we tell our Uber drivers to stop. Letting in what glow what can. Our blinds are open. Home with Lauren. Check this out, she chins to the window. Mr. Nyland is 7 years old. I call him Mr. Nyland because he calls me Mr. Paul. He lives on the sunny side, across the street, in a house spilling with siblings, cousins, and an uncle with 2 years on his nephew. Some celebrate Halloween, some Eid al-Fitr. And on this perfect first Sunday in April, while they're all in a burst of bikes upon our shared and messy little ribbon of Philadelphia, Mr. Nyland, he's a lumberjack. Leaping in bursts, in grunts, he's battle-axing at the cherry bloom that Miss Madeline from next door called the last remaining tree on the block. She, an almost 5 decades resident, we just renewed our lease. A grunt, a leap, a blow, then drift delicate down. For with both hands brandishing an open and edged umbrella, floral and pink and junior, flowers fighting flowers, Mr. Nyland is swinging Wolverine comic arcs at spring's beginning. Contrast of white, blossoms which only just moved in a few days ago, blossoms sentenced to release and be gone by next weekend. What is going on over here? His great auntie Madeline asks. There are bees in the trees, Mr. Nyland cries. Bees in the trees? Nashir is afraid of bees. Thank you. I've got 2 more. This is called Refresher. Someone called their mindfulness a glass-bottomed suspension bridge. So in that land, I stood a ladder, somersaults, somewhere above the loud uncertainty of being lullabied by our great nation of face palms. Something like the archived field recordings of recently extinct North American birds, somersaults. Sometimes I less than better sounding say such gems as, I'm just a bag of me. Skewer me and I won't be. Somersaults. Somehow young and jumping up and down, mischief in the back of a yellow school bus as the driver hits the brake to lift you up and off the speed bumps is that which is connecting us right now. Somersaults. In some ways, the 3 dark holes of a bowling ball, the dotted sides of a die, and the coal of a snowman. Somersaults. Someday our beloved cigarette smokers will stop flicking their damn cigarette butts into the street. Somersaults. Sometimes I thrive in the spirit of not being the brightest star in the shy. Well, somewhat. Somebody just asked, when was the last time you did a somersault? And I said, actually, it hasn't been that long at all. Nice. This is a sneaky little poem. All right, so this is my last one. This is for my wife, Lauren. It's called Clicker. I extra virgined up a hot non-stick. After rolling the skillet above the heat, a harbinger. Babe, you see this? Lauren laughed. The oil drew a uterus, ovaries and all. Today was the first day we started trying. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much. And it worked.
Hi, Evie. Aww.
Everybody, this is Evie. Evie
Hi, sweetheart. Aww.
I mean, that's how you get applause, right? You bring a baby.
Hi, baby. Oh.
This is my sweet little Evie.
Oh, girl, my. So precious.
4 pounds, 12 ounces.
14.
Sorry, 14 pounds.
I was going to say.
Yeah, imagine 4 pounds. She's pretty big. For 4 pounds. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Paul. That was wonderful. We are so happy to have you.
I could see my parents, and it's just lovely. So thank you.
Aww.
Yeah.
Welcome to our village, Paul. We are so happy to have you. We can't wait to hear all the good things that you're going to be doing with us this year.
Really appreciate it. Thank you, Joanna. Yeah, let's do some weird stuff. Let's have fun.
All right, I'm in.
I would love for folks to post any links, anything that you have coming up, promos, like lay it on us. Drop what you got.
Hi, everyone. Why do I feel like I can't, okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, before people start taking off, thank you to Joanne and Chad and Courtney and Nicole and Christine and Lena, and to all the great poets we heard today, Paul and everyone else that's read and shared their work today. We're really grateful. It's been a wonderful, wonderful day. And next year, I hope to see everyone at Rosemont in the flesh. We can have a glass of wine and hang out. So be safe and be well, everyone. And thank you all for coming and being a part of Lit Life. It's been amazing, really has. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm so thrilled. Yeah, I guess in the like few minutes that we have at the end, if anybody, I don't know.
I just want to say one thing.
Feel free to go, but go ahead.
I don't want to leave. I feel like I want to be with everybody. I have this like insatiable need to like be with everybody.
If we were in person, we would all be like, should we go to like Teresa's? Are we going to Glifty's? What are we doing?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you folks have to come to Rosemont. Paul, is your daughter's named Eve?
Evie Leal.
E-V-I-E?
EVIE. Yeah.
Okay, because our daughter's name is Eve, E-V-E. I just wanted to make sure. But she is adorable. She has you wrapped around. Oh, she's wrapped around your every finger.
Oh.